Welcome to the Amplifying Leadership podcast. I am your host, Tara Lehman, a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is a division. This podcast is a place dedicated to amplifying your leadership through our guest stories, tips, information, and more. To learn more about our leadership division, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Kevin Dawson, author and leadership consultant. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for our topic today, but before we get to that, let's learn a little bit about you and your leadership journey.
Absolutely. So my leadership journey really kind of starts back to my childhood. My parents were real involved with getting me into different organizations, and my dad, one of the ones he wanted me to get was into the scouting organizations, and learning how to be a productive member of society, learning all the things about what it looks like to be engaged in civic activities, to be engaged with keeping the environment clean and better than we found it, and serving greater than just myself. And so that led down this path through my childhood and through my teen years into my college years of always being curious about what it takes to inspire others, to lead others, to follow others. I had a really great mentor in my high school years who really challenged me on what it looks like to be a leader. And he would always hound into me. He said, Kevin, in order to be a great leader, you need to learn to be a great follower first. Because followers have a lot more power than you think, because without followers, leaders don't have anybody.
Yeah, it's very true, isn't it?
Very true. And so that eventually led into opportunities in my early career of I started in the nonprofit world, working in a museum and having to lead volunteers who believed in what we were doing with the museum and working with students. And so I learned, what it looked like to lead in a very early role of my career. And I always tell this story. I was actually speaking recently at a conference as a keynote, and sharing this early failure in leadership, where I was trying to motivate my team, my volunteers, who was made up a bunch of college students or in high school students who wanted to spend their summers working with me, and so we had a bunch of stuff coming up, and I thought I would motivate them with pizza party.
Okay, yeah,
and go, hey, I want, we've got all this stuff going on. I want to, why not? I'm, as most students love pizza.
true.
You'd think that was, something to motivate them. And it really didn't. It fell flat. And as I sat in reflection, okay, what did I do wrong here? I thought that this was something that would work. And what I failed to recognize was that the people on my team, while they appreciated the pizza, that's not what they cared about. They wanted to be collaborative, to be invited, to be involved in the process of what we were doing versus just being dictated to, because that's what I thought leadership looked like. And so it quickly unraveled on me, going, okay, I misfired here in what I thought leadership should look like. And so it's kind of one of those early failures that you go, okay, this is a good learning moment as a leader of understanding that the people on my team are unique, and I need to find ways that appreciate who they are and what motivates them. Because over the life of my career in talking with leaders and helping organizations build better cultures, build purpose-driven cultures, they have to look at the unique individuals on their team and go, not everybody is going to want to be motivated the same way.
I absolutely agree, because motivation is something I tell a lot of my clients, like, do you even know what motivates your employees? Especially when the employees are disengaged, do you know what motivates them? Because maybe you're not tapping into that.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite strengths experts, Marcus Buckingham, the way he describes what a strength is, it's those those things that you do that you just lose track of time because you just love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm talking to leaders and organizations and helping them find those motivational moments of what can I get, ask the people on your team, what are
Yes.
those moments that you can go, you know what, I lost track of time doing this because I absolutely love it. And then on the flip side, what are those weaknesses? It's not necessarily that they're not good at it or they're deficient in it. It's just that's not where they put their time and effort into it. And they push those off to the side on their desk and go, okay, what do we need to do with those moments where we push things off to the side of our desk because it's not really what we care that much about, and maybe there's opportunities to find people who that is their strength. They love
Mm-hmm.
doing those things, and maybe we reallocate or collaborate a little bit better in finding those things. And then if there's just not, then we just have to find a way to work through. Okay, well, we know that these things have to get done. What can I do as a leader support you in getting these things done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that when people are starting to procrastinate, it's because they don't usually like to do whatever it is they're procrastinating on. And, that's where really that motivation factor comes in. What can we do to help them be motivated, even to do the things that even we as leaders don't want to do? I mean, we have administrative work we can't delegate that we still need to do, right? So
Absolutely.
I want to get to our topic, which we've already started talking about, but I want the audience to understand on tap leadership and building purpose driven teams. What do you mean by that?
So this is a journey for me that started about 6 years ago. I've always been naturally curious and trying to understand what drives people. And a good friend of mine, Bruce Waller, challenged me. He goes, "Hey, Kevin, you should write." And I said, "Nope, I absolutely hate that idea. Writing was my least favorite subject in school. Why would I want to write a blog?" And because Bruce is a prolific writer,
Okay.
and I'm like, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. But I kept thinking about it because I was wanting to understand people more and gain a little bit more influence and credibility in what I was talking about. And so I had launched a podcast that I originally called Leaders and Loggers. I wanted to
Hmm.
sit down with leaders over beer and say,
Nice.
"Hey, join me for happy hour, and let me just ask questions. I want to learn
Hmm.
from you. I want to learn your story. I want to learn what's working, what's not working. What are the lessons and the failures that you've seen that just I myself can learn from." And then it kind of turned into, let's put microphones between us as if there was two friends sitting at a bar solving the world's issues and
Yeah.
record it and see what we get out of that. And after a couple of years of doing that, I had all this content from so many great leaders from around the world that I had gotten an opportunity to speak to, from Fortune 500 CEOs, military leaders, to nonprofit leaders, to community leaders, to
Hmm.
just individual contributors, authors. And so I started formulating, okay, what does this look like? And then obviously with all this beer in between, I started kind of looking at it, the lens of the beer brewing process as this analogy
Okay.
of developing leaders, teams, and cultures. And so when I think about this on tap framework, if you think about kind of four components of the beer brewing process, starting with the tank at the end of the brewing process, is kind of this is where all of the vision and ideas are sitting. We've got all these
Okay.
great ideas, but how do we get that into the glass, you know,
Hmm.
at the end of the day? Well, there's other components that have to transpire between the tank and the glass. And so you have all these visions and ideas in the tank. And then you have the tap handle itself, which is where you're going to pour out all of these ideas as a leader. And then that line in between is the communication, the feedback, the collaboration that has to transpire between leaders and their teams to feel like there is some sort of purpose here. Because if you're just giving somebody a beer in this analogy, say, here you go, there's no collaboration, there's no and
Hmm.
how do you even know that they like beer? Maybe they're a wine drinker, maybe they
Hmm.
don't drink at all, maybe they want a soda. There was no collaboration in that process. And so there are this process of we've got to be collaborative. We have to understand what's
Mm-hmm.
happening and break down that there is unique people on our teams. And I love stories where it's like, no, here's how our team operates outside of kind of the cultural process that we've built in our organization, because you see this in these microcosms in organizations,
Mm-hmm.
where, like, for example, one organization, they shared like, hey, we have this spot by the water cooler where we'll just meet when we have an idea, and this is our collaboration spot. There's no, standard operating procedure says you have to meet at the water cooler to discuss how this, like, this is where we naturally meet. Another
Right.
friend of mine, he he'll take his team and go get iced tea and walk around the block, and they'll talk and walk
Mm.
as part of this process. And they're always refining and adding things. Go, what does this look like to take these visions and ideas, and me as a leader, how do I pour this out into them and make them feel like they're part of this process and have this active process of communication. And I always tell leaders that there's really three things that you need to be asking people on your team every week to check in with them. You need to ask them, like, okay, what are you working on this week? So you just
Mhm.
be naturally curious. What are you working on? Because then, one, this allows you to understand, are they working on what you need them to work on, or maybe
Yes, very
this
true.
gets them to come back and say, okay, I like that, but really this is the priority this week. Two, how are you? Just asking them as a human being, like, what's going on in your life? What are the external stresses that are going on that
Hmm.
I need to be aware of, to be able to give some grace and guidance. And then lastly, as a leader, how can I support you? What do you need from me?
Hmm.
And I tell
Yes.
them, like, this process, doesn't have to be anything formal. You don't need to go, hey, I need you to book 15 minutes in my office, come by. Like, ask them in between getting cups of coffee,
Yeah,
take
for
them to
sure.
lunch, just, get out of that norm and make it feel like this is just normal and part of who we are, and not like, oh, I've got to block 15 minutes with Kevin today. So, make sure, okay, what's my calendar? I need you to see you at 9:15 to 9:30. Okay, that takes away a little bit of that trust and feeling of, oh, I'm part of this. It's not as structured, but at the
Hmm.
same time, there is some structure to it, and
Right.
building that into this. Okay, we're moving in the same direction, if with the vision that we've set for, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's this collaboration, this idea, and then all of those, as they get poured into that glass, that person goes, okay, I feel comfortable that what we're doing is something that I want to enjoy and be a part of.
Hmm. So there's a very common theme that you're talking about today that I am always an advocate for, and that is being curious and asking those questions because it does allow us to stop being that more dictative leader who says, you need to go do this and you need to go do that, where we can actually ask them what their roadblocks or challenges are so that we can actually give them resources or help or whatever it is that they may need in order to come even overcome that procrastination that they have, right? It's all about being curious and asking the right questions. Are there some challenges around
I
that
think
you
it is.
see?
A lot, yes, there is a lot of challenges with this kind of curious mindset.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times, and we see this in all aspects of life, it feels like, right now, where you've got all these different tribes of individuals and thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we tend to wait, not in conversation, we will tend to wait to respond, but not to listen. And
Yeah.
and that's where it's like, no, I'm ready to give you my side, my point of view. As soon as you stop talking, if we're polite enough to at least give them that,
Mm, yes, absolutely.
versus just stopping and saying, hey, let me actually listen to what you're saying, and hear what's going on, and actually be that part of that active listening process.
Yeah, for sure.
And go, okay, let me ask questions. It's funny, on the back of my laptop, it's the quote, be curious, not judgmental, which, if any of your listeners are big Ted Lasso fans, they'll remember that scene in the first
Hmm.
season where he brings that up about people, uh, just not understanding because they weren't curious. And I think
Hmm.
that's, as leaders, you have to be curious. You have to ask questions, and then you have to stop and listen for the answer
Yeah.
that's being given.
I love the idea of the pause. And by the time that your recording comes out, I'll have done a tip Thursday with Tara as well on this podcast where I actually talk about the pause. The awkward silence allows people, including us, but also the people we're talking to, if we give them that silence or that pause to process, think about things. And then we can collaboratively have a conversation together about whatever it is, rather than just reacting or, just saying, go do this, or not really listening to what the other person has to say.
Absolutely. And I think what's funny to me about the awkward pause and the silence, because people get so uncomfortable in silence.
Yes.
I'm like, sometimes it's the best thing you can do is because people will give you more because they're like, I don't like this either. So let me just keep talking and give you more of what
Mhm.
I'm thinking and
Yeah.
feeling. And then you're able to use that. And it's maybe a very poor way to look at it, but it is a little bit of like a negotiation. And that whoever
Hmm.
speaks first sometimes loses, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in leadership where it's like, look, I want to get more out of you. And so I want you to talk more. I want you to open up more. And if I really am being curious and not judging you for why you think the way that you think, why you approach something the way that you approach, it gives me insight into what the way that you do. Go, okay, maybe
Hmm.
there is something here that there's some commonality and we're just approaching it from two different points of view, but yet still have the same goal in mind.
Exactly. And it just allows so much more processing too of everything, right? So much better. I want to
Absolutely.
pivot a little bit because we talk about, the water cooler or, just seeing the person in the coffee room or whatever. But what happens when we have a remote team?
Yeah,
How's that different?
it's a challenge, I think, because you lose to some aspect of the human element when you go behind the
Hmm.
screen. I worked for an organization that was all remote a few years back, and we still main, maintain good culture. I still talk to those people. I haven't worked with them in
Awesome.
2 or 3 years. I mean, the CEO of the organization, we send each other stupid memes and reels on Instagram to one another. I mean, big Lord of the Rings fans, and as am I. And so we'll send each other stuff like that as part of this
Awesome.
this collaboration. Go, hey, you know what? We can find those common moments in what was helpful for us in building that culture as a startup tech company was we saw each other, at least 3 days a week together as a team to talk through.
Hmm.
Here are the wins. Here are the successes. And I still laugh like when we would get a win, depending on the size of it, the CEO would play music with it. And if it was a small win, he'd play the Benny Hill theme song, which would crack us up. If it was a big win, it was, some sort of rock song that he was like, because he's a drummer. And so he was play those things and just quirky little things like
Hmm.
that. And then what helped though was the person I reported to at the time. We had daily check-ins, but we would also text throughout the week. Like
Right.
here's what's
Okay. Yeah.
and so we would keep that communication going and find ways to just see what was, and it really, and a lot of the text conversation wasn't about work. It
Hmm.
was what's going on outside of work and going, hey, what's going on here? How can I help you here? What's doing this? Because at the time I was dealing with a lot of external stresses with some
Hmm.
relationships that I had, and so they were help just wanting to make sure that, hey, what do you need from me in this moment? And I think when you're in a remote environment as a team, you have to find ways to keep the human connection, that human
Hmm.
element. And as a leader, and if you're leading teams in the remote world, you have to have that constant conversation going,
Yes.
and it doesn't have to be just about work. Like if you like the people who are on your team, and I hope you would, because that, I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to work with people that we like,
Hmm.
but we want to have those conversations about what's going on in your world, and finding those human elements to bond over, because then
Hmm.
when things do get tough, you have that connection as a human with
Hmm.
other things outside of work that
Yeah.
bring you to it. And so I think in the remote environment, the biggest thing is continuous conversations and continuous just touch points of just building things, and you have to be much more intentional because you don't,
Hmm.
like, if I'm going to get coffee, it could be in my kitchen or it could be down the street.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too because connection is so important with remote teams or remote work. The connection is so key because, when we are in an office setting, we do go to, each other's office or desk and chit chat about life, what are the kids doing and such. Remotely, if you don't have that type of connection, it can make it much more difficult for suddenly I have something going on in my life that it's affecting work. It's a lot more difficult to say, hey, this is what's going on if we don't have some sort of human connection, as you call it. I love that. I think it's really, really important in the remote global workforce. Um, what are some of those key pieces, though, that keep building our teams to be really strong, remote or not? Like, what are some of the key pieces that maybe we haven't covered? I mean, obviously, communication is huge, being curious, asking those good questions. Are there any other stepping stones that help us, especially if our team is not
So
working
this
out
is
well?
yeah. So the one this is going to be probably a strange concept to
Sure.
people, but it's love.
I've heard this before. You're not the first person. Yes.
And so love as a tool versus
Hmm.
take out the romantic element of love and go,
Yes. Yes.
how do I love people as a human being? How do I love people as myself? As well, people will say, well, that's the golden rule. Well, great. Take it a step further. Love people the way that they want to be loved.
Hmm.
So that means asking these questions to understand the uniqueness of the person on your team.
Hmm.
Going, well, your name says this, but do you be preferred being called by a different name? Or maybe you have a
Hmm.
nickname that you actually, I really like this. And just asking that. And a lot of people don't ask that question.
It's true.
Or
It's very true.
or saying, hey, what's the best way you've ever been celebrated for doing something?
I like
And
that.
and understanding, like, some people love the big attention, others,
Hmm.
hey, great job, a simple note, maybe sending them a gift card to their favorite restaurant, things along those lines that are just real kind of one-offs,
Hmm.
and understanding that, or understanding, like, hey, what is your ambition,
Yes.
or understanding. And these are all elements of love, of understanding, like, I want to care about you as an individual.
Hmm.
And that really does make a difference, because when you approach with love, and using love not as a weakness, or combining, I mean, it's really just kind of empathy as a whole
Hmm.
tied into it, and going, I care about you. I want what's best for you. And sometimes as leaders, understanding that what is best for somebody may not be what's best for the team. And so you're helping them
Hmm.
find what is best for them and getting them to that moment. And they're just there temporarily.
Hmm. It's the whole know your audience piece too, isn't it? I mean, know who you're talking to, how they want to be appreciated. As you mentioned, maybe they don't like to be appreciated in a great big room full of people. What is it that what motivates them, as we talked about earlier? It's just about really understanding who they are so that we can be a leader with love and empathy and knowing who they are so we can actually approach them in a way that they're going to be able to understand what we're saying. We're going to be able to work well together and even with the team. It's like the balance of strengths and weaknesses, right?
Absolutely. And so to kind of take this back to that opening story of my pizza party failure, once I started to see each person on my team for who they are, what motivated them, what drove them, and what made us really get close knit and build what we did in this great opportunity in just a short few years of, was because of that approach of,
Hmm.
I saw them and I cared about them and I still care. And it's, to see them to this day succeeding at, 20 years later, where, one of them is a chief of staff for a U.S. House of Representative member here in the States. Another one is
Hmm.
assistant district attorney. Another one is the, practice leader for a CPA firm. Another one is a stay-at-home mom and an author. And another one, joined the military and is, to see those successes and to still be in contact with them really like solidifies like no matter where life goes, those relationships that you build as a leader still have impact years down the
Hmm.
road.
They absolutely do. I mean, good leaders, you can see how that flourishes when they do leave your company or they move on to something different. Like all the examples that you gave of these people being promoted into different things, or becoming an author. I mean, so many people have that on a bucket list, right? Is to write that book and become an author. So, it's really, really important that the leaders are doing these things that you're mentioning today, and being curious and using that love, and something that you said at the beginning, which is learning from our mistakes and even talking to people about what mistakes you made so that we don't repeat them or we can at least learn from them, right? That is where I see the leaders and their influence goes with people when they leave. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's like the quote that's attributed to Richard Branson: treat people so well that they won't leave. But if you train them well, you want to train those people that they do succeed and can go on. But if you treat them well enough, they'll stay.
Yeah, very true. And if you treat them really well and there's nowhere to grow, they're going to move on and be better because of you.
Absolutely. And I think leaders have to kind of get out of that fear of like, I don't want to lose a good person.
Hmm.
But if you're a great leader, you're going to encourage them to go on.
Hmm.
If there is no opportunity for growth where they're at with you, help them find the opportunity to continue to succeed, because that's going to multiply your influence and credibility as a leader when they can go,
Hmm.
"Hey, I was able to succeed because so and so helped me."
Yeah, and it builds your company because you're going to get great people who are going to be, you can be able to recruit because everybody's talking wonderfully about your company, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's wrap up today with all these key pieces of building great teams that you've been sharing. Where do we start if maybe we're a new leader or new to a new team?
So I would say find the people that you're working with and start asking questions, because great leaders, even if you are the new person on the team, great leaders are learners. And
Hmm.
so it's asking questions, it's listening, it's going on and finding resources, whether it's a book or a podcast, and getting as many different points of views to help you succeed. And I think that's where
Yeah,
you start, is just be curious, ask
love
questions,
that.
and listen.
I love that. Those are awesome points. I love them too because I share them all the time. Thank you so much for your time today. Is there a place if our audience wanted to get in touch with you somehow or see or what you do? Is there a place online?
Absolutely, yes. So you can come to ontapleadership.com. You can find me on social media. I'm more active on LinkedIn at Kevin C. Dawson. You can find me there. Please, if you're hearing this and want to connect, just send me a connect. I heard you on the podcast. Like, I'm going to accept it. There is also an On Tap Leadership newsletter on LinkedIn that comes out every 2 weeks. And then if you're on Facebook, we do also have an On Tap Leadership Facebook group where you can
Awesome.
connect and have conversations with other people who are like, hey, we all are curious. We want to become better leaders, build better teams. It doesn't matter if you are just starting your career or you are leading a large organization, everybody's welcome.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for all those spaces too, because everybody uses different platforms these days.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing all the information and tips today. It was great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Tara. I really appreciate it.
Of course, we thank you, our audience, today. We do hope you gained some valuable tips or information from today's conversation with Kevin. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a great rating. This helps us and our guests like Kevin reach even more leaders with our helpful stories, tips, and advice. We love helping other leaders grow and thrive. We would love for you to consider our brand new Amplifying Leadership community. More information is found at amplifyingleadership.ca/community-info. Leadership is better when we do it together. For more information about all of our leadership services, please visit us anytime at amplifyingleadership.ca, a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. Until next time, remember, leadership matters.